Welcome to PDL Techniques. As we continue to educate our students in remote learning, I wanted to share a digital resource that you can use that will allow you to interact with your students during synchronous instruction. This resource is called Whiteboard.fi, and Whiteboard.fi is a free digital whiteboard that will allow students to have their own whiteboard during the synchronous instruction, and it will allow the teachers to see both their whiteboard and all of their students' whiteboard in real time. So let me show you how this particular tool works. So to begin to access this, we're going to go to the site whiteboard.fi. Whiteboard.fi. You will notice that the site does not require you or students to create any accounts. So this is a nice feature or a nice option that you don't have to worry about. All you have to do is just go to site and then you can right away begin using this. So teachers will simply begin by clicking the add new class button. So this is for as a teacher to begin. We're going to click this button and then you're going to give your class a name. Then once you give your class a name, you will see some settings. You will have an option to be able to enable a waiting room. So if you want to set it up so that your students have to be allowed in by you, you can choose to enable the waiting room. You can also enable the manual save mode so that students will have to manually save their boards whenever they want to actually do that. I'm just going to go ahead and click to create my new class. And once I have done that, you're going to see a URL appear that's going to have a code at the end. And this is what we're going to provide for our students to allow them to access their own whiteboard. You can also provide this QR code if you choose to do that. If you find that to be an easier way to access your board, you can use this show QR code as well. So I'm going to go to my board both on my on the site here and on my phone for the student example. And here you'll see on the student example, we need to the student would type in their name. And then once the student logs into the site, you will then see on your board or on your screen as the teacher the students' names there. So if I had multiple students here, I would see all of my students and their boards located here. As a teacher, to go to my board, I can just click to toggle to my whiteboard. And when I go to that part, I can now see my whiteboard here where I can start entering whatever I want to in here. So ideally what I would do here is in my meeting with my students, I would have this displayed for my students to be able to see. And then down below here, you'll see I could add additional boards to this particular one. So if I wanted to have multiple pages of boards, I could do that. I can also scroll down as a teacher and see all of my students' whiteboards here. So currently I just have the one, but if I had multiple students logged in, I'd be able to see all of my students' whiteboards. Now on the student scene, I will be able to see, as a student, I'd be able to see my board and I'd be able to add content to this one. And I also will see that toggle teacher whiteboard here as well. So if I wanted to go to see my teacher's whiteboard, I can click on that and then now I'd be able to see both my teacher's whiteboard up at the top and then my whiteboard just below it. Now you're going to be able to see on both screens, there is some menu options up here at the top. I'm not going to show you all of them, but I do want to just mention a few of them. So you do have some options up here. You will see this little pencil here where it's basically a freehand draw, where if I wanted to go here and be able to draw some pictures in here, maybe I want to draw a picture of a square. I can draw a square. I know that's a really ugly looking square, but you can get the idea. And what you'll see as I draw the square, and you'll notice on the student screen that my drawings will appear on my student screen as well. So they'll be able to, this is just giving you the example, the look and feel of what it will look like in real time for both the teacher and the student. So I can draw this on the teacher whiteboard and the teacher whiteboard will appear on my student screen as well. So I could draw those things using the freehand draw. They have some other options up here, so if you prefer, they also have shapes that you can use. So if you would rather use shapes, you can draw those here. You can copy and paste these options. If you want to recreate multiple options of this, you could. I'm just going to copy this. So you'll start to notice that as you use some of these shapes, you'll be able to rotate it using this to, if you wanted to go ahead and do that. You can also resize it by hovering over one of the dots for each surrounding shape, and then you can just drag it to resize it to make it whatever size you need it to. They have, besides the rectangle, they also have circles here. You can include text. They give you the ability to include images that you have stored on your device. So if you have a picture that you want to use as a part of this that you have saved on your device, you can click this picture, but this insert image button, and that will allow you to pull those items in here. So you can look at some of these other options that are available inside of here, and you can utilize these to be able to modify the images that you're going to have on your screen. At the bottom here, you will be able to see there are some options here for background. So if you wanted to have a more of a grid background, you could do that. They even have some music backgrounds if you wanted to include that. So if you wanted to make that your background, you certainly could go ahead and do that. I'm going to get rid of I'm going to clear the backgrounds here in a few minutes, but they also have other things, some options here for emojis. So if you wanted to choose one of those, that's a good place to go to add some of those if you want to, if that's a part of it. And they also have some math specific operations here. So if you want to go to this insert math button, you can use this editor to start inserting information here for your students to view. That's a little bit easier, that's more math based. I'm just going to close this, go back to my grid. And so now I have this, and my students are able to see this. As you see, all this is all the changes that I'm making on my screen. They're also showing on my student screen. And you'll also notice that on my student screen, the options that are available for the teacher are also available here for the student as well. So the student can come over here and enter things inside of their board as well. And as a teacher, again, I can scroll down here and I can see the changes that the student is making on their board. So now if the student wants to draw something and they're making changes, I'll be able to see all of that on my board. You see that there's a circle that they just put in there. So it's just a nice example of how you can see all this information in real time. And so now as a teacher, I can continue to do this, ask my students to do certain things on their board. I can view it down here. So I have this visual here and I have this way to interact with my students. If I wanted to add some additional boards to this particular one, from the teacher perspective, I could just click the plus sign, and that would allow me to insert a brand new page inside of here. And I can go to this brand new page and then just start fresh and add some new content here for my students to view. So I could go here and play with this and add all sorts of content here for my students. You do have the ability, you'll notice that when you come over here for some of the drawing options, they do have a setting button here that will allow you to change the colors and change the width. You'll notice the same thing when you click on the shapes. You'll be able to change the fill and the outline and the width. So you can really play with all those things to do whatever it is that you're trying to do with your students. Now, one of the nice things you'll be able to see from the teacher perspective is I'm just going to just draw something here, just as an example, is you will be able to push some of your content to your students. So if I wanted to, I can put something on my board and use it as an example, and then I can go over here to push, and then I can push this to push all pages to students. I can push pages to push to students, and this could just be the current page, or I can just push the background to my students. So I can pick whichever one I want. So if I just choose to push this current page to my students, it's going to push to my students, and now you'll see from the student perspective, I now get a message here. your teacher has whiteboards was pushed to you, and now what was on my teacher's board is not here. So now I might do something as simple as asking my students to maybe shade their board to be a different color, um, to maybe identify the right number, the right fraction. So maybe I want them to shade a color. I'm just going to say in red to let me see 1/3. And so I can put that on there and they can color that down there for me to see. And then I'd be able to see there's a change there for that student. Um, so there's all sorts of things that you can kind of do with that, but you see the opportunities here where I can put something on my board, push it out to my students, and then they can interact with it. And as a teacher, in real time, I'd be able to see all of it. So you can continue to add these additional pages and content to your pages and push them out to your students. I do want to just run over here, just one last thing from the teacher perspective. Over here, you will see there's this little gear at the top right-hand corner. And when you click on the gear, you will see there are some options down here where I can enable the waiting lobby. So again, this is where the same that we had at the very beginning, where we can set this up so that teachers can um, set up a waiting room for students to have to go into. So that's a nice thing that you can have. You can lock your room. This is again the enable the manual saving, so it will require students to save their board manually. So otherwise, it'll do it on its own. They also have things where you can hide student names. You can clear all the students' whiteboards. If I wanted all my students to start from scratch, I can click this button. And then you see there, all my students' whiteboards will start from scratch and we can begin something brand new, or they can begin trying to do something on their own. But I still will be able to see it. And then finally, you have the option to be able to save all the whiteboards as a PDF. So if you wanted to be able to go back and review this and assess it, maybe give your students some additional feedback from this, you can click on this Save All Whiteboards as a PDF. And then now you'll have this saved to your device and you can go back and look at it. And then at the end, when you're done, you can always just click Close Room, and that will close out this particular session for Whiteboard.fi. So that is just our example of Whiteboard.fi. It's a great interactive whiteboard tool that you can use with your students. It's a great option for synchronous learning that you can do with your students in real time, and I encourage you to give it a try.